Welcome to this Day One Conversation. I'm Peter Wallace, and with me today is Diana Butler Bass. Diana is an author, speaker, scholar, specializing in American religion and culture. She's a senior fellow at the Cathedral College of the Washington National Cathedral. She has earned a PhD in religious studies from Duke. She's a frequent commentator in numerous media outlets. She's taught at a variety of schools, and the author of 7 books, including Christianity for the Rest of Us, which was named as one of the best religion books of the year by Publishers Weekly and Christian Century, and a new book, The People's History of Christianity, The Other Side of the Story. Thanks for talking with us, Diana.
Well, thank you for having me, Peter. I really am glad to be with you today.
With all that background, what would you say is your mission statement in life?
I think it has become to live in hope and to help people proclaim hope. I would not have always said that. I suffered actually in my life quite a bit from depression. But over the years, as I have practiced my vocation as a historian, as a person who observes both the Christian past and the Christian present, there's been something that has grown inside of me, a vocation of telling stories that give people hope. And somehow in knowing and telling stories, I found hope, and then have managed to somehow turn around and offer that to others. So now I claim that vocation, is that in the telling of stories, in the writing of good words, in the speaking of our faith, that there is a way of hopefulness for transformation for ourselves as individuals and for the world. So I have come to receive from the community that reads my words that I have a vocation of hope.
Well, and having heard you speak at the Festival of Homiletics, very hopeful message to a group of people who are seeing a lot of decline in their denominations and so forth, and you've turned it around. We're going to get to that in a minute, but let me ask you about your spiritual journey, because you've had kind of an interesting journey. Tell us about where you ended up, where you started and where you ended up.
Where I started was a small Methodist church in Baltimore City, St. John's Methodist Church in the little suburban area of Hamilton in Baltimore. It was a congregation that my ancestors helped to found in 1904, and that several generations of my family were part of, and I was born there and baptized there in 1959. That congregation and sort of mid-century Methodism shaped me very strongly, and I still understand that in that congregation I first heard messages about social justice and transformation, and those things have stayed with me through all these years. But when in 1972, my parents left Maryland. They were distraught, like other people were, by all the changes that were going on in society, and they moved to Arizona. So they were part of, frankly, it was white flight. They went someplace where they felt like they could be safe and maybe recreate the patterns of the past. So we moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, which was sort of like the 1950s and the 1970s. It was not a very trendy sort of place. Barry Goldwater, was the most popular politician there. And at that moment in my life, I was a young teenager, and my parents stopped going to church. They got us confirmed in the Methodist Church, and then they just stopped. So that left me at a pretty tender part of my own development and my own growing up without any sort of guidance as to what to do with my religious life. And I became, I looked at a number of different options. I went to a Mormon congregation for a little while. I went to Roman Catholic masses with friends. I had a lot of friends that were Jewish. Attended some Native American rites and ceremonies. We lived right off of an Indian reservation, but wound up in a fundamentalist church. And so I had my requisite born-again experience when I was 15, and around a campfire in someone's backyard at a youth group meeting, singing the song, I Wish We'd All Been Ready.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a real popular, end time song in the 70s. So I was shaped then by the evangelical tradition of the 1970s and went to an evangelical college and seminary. And that tradition quickly proved not entirely satisfactory to me. So about 1980, I was in Europe with some friends. We were touring, and I went into an Anglican church, and it was at that little Eucharist in a Church of England congregation that I sort of reacquainted myself with historic Protestantism and came home from Europe, joined a local Episcopal congregation, and it's been for these last almost 30 years now, I can't believe it's been that long, that the Episcopal Church has framed my life. And so I consider myself a child of the main line who ventured afar and then came home to a different corner of the main line, but still very much part of the heritage churches of historic Protestantism.